Hi, everybody, and welcome again to Adam's Music Box. Well, the other week I was asked which Frank Zappa album I should listen to first if I'm a Frank Zappa novice. Not me personally, I have listened to everything he's ever done several times and more, but hypothetically, for someone out there who's getting into Frank Zappa, something that can be a daunting task, I talked about which albums one can listen to first. Search for that on my channel. But there's another great Frank with almost as many albums, actually maybe more. I've never counted them, but let's just say there are two Franks who both recorded a lot of material, and it's all really, really good. That's, of course, the chairman of the board, Old Blue Eyes himself, Francis Albert Sinatra. Now, with all of these albums and with all of them being very, very, very good, which Frank Sinatra album should you listen to first? There's a lot to choose from, but in my view, it's got to be Sinatra and Strings, originally from 1962. Now, you can roughly divide Sinatra albums into two halves, even though there's some convergence within albums. But in general, there's the upbeat albums and there's the more ballad based, more melancholic, more contemplative albums. And Sinatra and Strings is 100% in this second category. It is brooding, but in the best possible way. It's melodic, melancholic, lots of ballads, very introspective. And I think that with Sinatra, the more melancholic side of his music has aged much better than the more upbeat side, because the upbeat side uses a lot of typical musical and lyrical tropes that even by the 60s were beginning to become a throwback to, let's say, the 1940s, where the sad albums, if you will, of Sinatra are really timeless. They have a certain quality to them that doesn't rely on tropes of any musical or lyrical variety, but merely on excellent composition, excellent arrangements, and the wonderful voice of Frank himself. Now, of all of the great arrangers that worked with Sinatra, the best, in my view, was Don Costa. Gordon Jenkins was another great one, but Don Costa has always been my favorite, and he did all of the lush arrangements on this entire album. Now, as the name would imply, the album saw Frank Sinatra backed by a lush, large string section, and of course, there were winds, brass, and percussion as well. It really had a neo-orchestral, neo-romantic feel to it. And Don Costa's arrangements were absolutely beautiful. I was saying the other day that as contemporary classical music, as the sort of orchestral and symphonic worlds became increasingly avant-garde in the second half of the 20th century, if one wanted to compose in a neo-romantic and in a melodic and in a harmonious style, where would you go? Well, you could go to Broadway, you could go to be an arranger at a major New York or Los Angeles recording studio, you could work alongside some of the great pop artists of the day, Frank Sinatra being the foremost. And Don Costa, had he been born, let's say 40, 50, 60 years earlier, I think he would have been a great symphonic composer. And all of that feeling, all of that talent that would have been put into that was put into the arrangements on Sinatra and Strings. The selection of songs, absolutely perfect. Nothing corny, everything meaningful, and frankly timeless. I would say that there isn't a single song on the album that isn't timeless. And when you're listening to a vocalist as talented as Sinatra, who is the best pop vocalist in the classic style ever, what Michael Jackson was to the pop of the new school, Frank Sinatra was to the pop of the old school. He was the king of classic pop, if Michael Jackson's the king of the pop that formed the lives of most people born after the middle of the 20th century up to the present day. So I would say that this is a great album to start because you can start from if you're delving in to Frank Sinatra for the first time beyond the various greatest hits packages that have come out over the years. If you really want to listen to a Sinatra album beginning to end, start with this because Sinatra was really the first person to embrace the idea of the concept album, where everything on the album had some sort of thematic cohesion, whether the theme was musical, in this case with a large string section, or if it was ideological or stylistic in terms of the vocal and lyrical content. And that was really something quite unique. Sinatra didn't just use albums to be a random collection of songs replete with filler. It was really songs that had a purpose. There was a meaning for all of the stuff that was on a Frank Sinatra album. And here it really comes together. Well, there are other great albums. September of My Years, arranged by another great arranger, Gordon Jenkins, is another great one. All Alone is great. The list goes on, but above all, Sinatra in Strings is my favorite. So do listen to it. It's available on all the streaming services, and let me know what you think. Like, subscribe. We'll see you next time. Take care.